The best new patient generator in decades is virtual reality for dental patients. Opera VR, completely transforming the patient experience, truly gives people a remarkable experience. We can completely transform the patient's awareness, transport them outside of the operatory. Go to operavr.operadds.com. Welcome to the Operatory Podcast, the podcast about burying the dinosaurs in dentistry. Moving past outdated technology and procedures to find a better way. With me, as always, is the man, David Pryor himself, providing our patient perspective that's so sorely needed in dentistry today. Hello, sir.
Hey, Bryan, how's it going?
It's going all right. Although it is now, it's winter's here, man.
I know.
And so my bones are frozen.
You know, for our listeners, when we live in Minnesota, we get like 4 or 5 months of warm weather, then it's all, everything else is roll the dice. Maybe it'll be warm, maybe it won't. Oh, well.
And the sad thing is that the temperature that's making me freeze today, 6 months from now, I'd be wearing like...
shorts.
Yeah,
this is shorts weather.
And flip-flops.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's like your body just changes to it, right?
Yep.
That's crazy. But I'm excited to be back in the studio with you today, my man. I know I've recorded a couple podcasts with some great guests without the magic ingredient, providing the patient perspective. So it's been people in the dental industry yammering at each other, me and someone who's an industry mover and a shaker in dentistry without Dave. So I'm glad to have you back here, man.
Well, thank you.
And I am excited. So I just came back from the health conference, which is HLTH. About innovation in medicine. So it's outside of dentistry. There was one dental company that I saw that was it's kind of an innovative company, but primarily this was all medical offices and medical insurance, and people like Google is doing healthcare now, and Amazon and Facebook. While I was there, Facebook announced their foray into the electronic dental record, right? And Dave's face looks pained, which is kind of where I'm going with this.
Okay.
Because it was very enlightening. Like, the medical side and the dental side, whereas just like teeth are part of the body, right? But dentistry and medicine are very separate today. There is this sort of macro trend of the blending of the two. However, you would not know it when you're talking to anybody at this conference. It's very different, right?
Yeah.
But there's some evidence of that, sort of what I would say is on the periphery for most of us dentists. For example, Walmart, as I think a lot of people in dentistry know, just announced Walmart Health. They have a dental division. They've got optometry. They have, like, you can go in there, get your checkup, get your teeth cleaned for $40, by the way. And I think what I want to point out at this podcast, and I want to hear your perspective, Dave, from the patient
Before you go any further,
yeah.
Just that concept gives me dental anxiety. $40 checkup from Walmart. I'm like, man, that's rough.
Well, yeah. I mean, maybe. I don't know. We'll see, right? The guy, I think, and there's got to be, we were talking about it because I was there with some other people in dentistry, a couple other people. Then we were talking about, like, if it's not a loss leader, how is it profitable? Or what are they making money off the toilet paper next door to where you're getting your teeth cleaned? Who I don't know. But ultimately, I think that there's some things in dentistry that maybe a little controversial, maybe a little like, I've been getting a lot of positive feedback on LinkedIn and Facebook and comments. I might get some negative ones of this, but I think it's kind of an environment that we in dentistry and we in healthcare in general have created, because there's a problem that we have where companies like Facebook and Google and Amazon are moving very fast, right? And we are moving very slow as an industry.
Agreed.
Right?
Yep.
And the problem is, it made me lose my mind during this one conference, this one session, and I actually was talking to somebody who used to run the FDA, because these companies have all had massive privacy breaches. We're talking like big problems. Like Zuckerberg was literally like in front of Congress while I was at this meeting when they announced that they're going into medical records, right? And Google's had issues, and Amazon's had, obviously, like, they're talking about using Alexa in your operatory, right? Meanwhile, that same day, like Alexa's being used to find out like what is recording everything. So they're solving murders based on what the recordings within, right?
Right.
So the thing's listening all the time. So probably the Google overlords in my pocket are going to come after me right after this, right? Same thing with Apple. Every one of these large tech companies had problems. But I think the reason why they are also going into healthcare and they'll probably be very positive with it is because they move so fast and the industry moves very slow. What do you think of that?
I think that there's been a need for a wake-up call to move the industry faster, and I think that there is certainly the segment of the population of dentistry that's listening to this podcast is part of the solution. Like, you're not listening to this podcast if you're not really in a forward-thinking position, if you're not trying to move the bar forward in technology, in how your practice operates. But I think that there's been a lot of complacency in the industry. And, when I'm selling Opera DDS stuff and I get into the discussion of 90% of dental practices are still using paper forms, and nobody ever refutes that number because it seems very solid to me. And coming from the technology background that I come from, I'm floored. Well, and so when I'm looking at technology in dentistry and saying, you guys have a long way to go to catch up, and if the Amazons and the Googles of the world are coming after you, put your running shoes on.
And obviously that's kind of the theme of our podcast, right? But yeah. I think what really was highlighted to me at the health conference and the fact that Google and Amazon and Walmart and Facebook are going here is that there is an expectation on the patient side, on your side of the chair, mm-hmm. that we are not fulfilling, that is leaving a void for these companies to come in. Does that make sense? If we were meeting people's expectations, if every dentist was like the type of dentist that listens to this podcast, that's doing paperless forms, that's exceeding people's expectations with VR, that cares about patients' privacy and security and is providing the type of experience that blows people's minds, right? There would not be this opportunity for something like, let's be really controversial, the Smile Direct clubs of the world, right? Those at-home orthodontic, right? If we were meeting people where they want to be met, these companies that are looking to provide one of the most common themes at the health conference was consumerism, which basically says that healthcare is needs to become more consumer friendly. And the reason why is because the world has changed and healthcare has not. And so the sort of one of the big themes was that healthcare needs to be more consumer friendly, which really is like and one of the examples they used was Smile Direct Club. If we were providing orthodontics in a way that people could consume it in a positive way, they wouldn't be looking to cut out the people that oversee it, right?
Right.
That's ultimately where I see the danger of us ignoring the way the world is, of us not burying it really highlights the dangers of not burying the dinosaurs in dentistry, not moving in to find a better way, is that we leave the door open for these almost like questionable at best practices to enter our world, like Smile Direct Club.
Right. Yeah, no, I can definitely see where having somebody using Smile Direct as an example, like I see it from kind of half my foot is in dentistry and half of it is out, right? Because I get a lot of information from you. So when I hear about Smile Direct Club and the potential problems that it has, I don't think as a consumer I'm aware of the downside. And so just the general consumer is not going to be aware of what negative could happen. I certainly, as a consumer, realize that going to an orthodontist is going to provide a superior experience. But is it real? The average consumer, I think, is going to be, how much better is it really? And if this gets me to 95% of the way there, then great. Well, knowing what I know, that last 5% is a huge 5%.
Well, great point. And I was thinking the exact same thing. Now, I wouldn't say potential problems. Now those problems are being documented.
Right.
Right. And so there's some issues going on with that company that I think the public will probably become more aware of over time. You know, obviously, I'm closer to it, so I see it first, but I would think that this is going to be a problem. And so I pose that exact same question. I won't say to who because I don't want to expose who he is. Great guy. Who was speaking on a panel. I basically said all of there's a lot of companies that are moving into the healthcare sector, including dentistry, that have had history of problems, right? And yet they're going full force into here and being celebrated at this conference by unilaterally, right? And then there's companies like Smile Direct Club that are being celebrated by patients with they're voting with their checkbook, and these instantly is like one of the most valuable companies in dentistry. It has absolutely really nothing to do with dentistry. It's just cutting out really the oversight, right? So I said, well, what is the oversight here? How are we going to bridge the gap between these companies that move super fast that are, like in the Zuckerberg terms, go fast and break things, right? Mm-hmm. Versus the super conservative, slow nature of healthcare in general, including dentistry. And his response was that companies die because they go too fast or too slow, which is true. I thought it was a very wise answer, right? The problem, though, with that is when companies go too fast, they take down millions of people with them, right. In this case, so maybe it's thousands, maybe it's hundreds, but the damage done from going too fast can be very broad,
right?
And I think that we, as dentists, not we, you, me, the people listening to this audience, but as an industry, if we leave the door open for these companies to come in, and I think we have to protect our patients. It really is what it comes down to. And obviously, the organizations that we belong to aren't doing it, right?
Right. And that's a really, really good point. Is that educating your patient is probably the best thing that you can do as a clinician, is being able to say, here's what I provide and here's why it's different, and being able to, if somebody comes into you and says, what's the difference between you and this competitive product, whether it's Walmart, whether it's Smile Direct, you've got to have your answer ready to go and be able to confidently deliver it.
I love what you just said. I think that's a very key piece, right? That dentists, we as dentists need to build value for our services, and not, instead of casting stones at the people on the other side, saying that they're wrong doing their business practice. Well, instead, we should turn to our own house, get it in order, focus on what we can do to up our game, and also communicate that value to our patients and our teams.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you very much, Dave. It's been great being in the studio with you once again, my friend.
Thank you, Bryan.
Great perspective.
Thanks.
I also want to remind you to rate and review us wherever you're listening to this podcast. If you have suggestions or comments, please visit theoperatory.com and drop us a line. Again, I'm Dr. Bryan Laskin, host of The Operatory. Thanks for listening. I look forward to speaking with you next week.